Yesterday we were talking about covering the blood. We're on page 646, Pasuk Yud. The ish mi beis Yisrael, any Jew, umin hagir, hagor b'socham, or a convert that lives among them, asher yochal kol dam, who consumes blood, v'nasati fanai b'nefesh ochel, says Adam, I will turn my attention to the soul who eats blood. You see where that is? 5 lines from the bottom, 6 lines from the bottom. V'hichrati osam mikerav ha'ma, I will cut him off. This is the prohibition to eat blood. Now, to us, if you would tell your average Westerner, don't eat blood. Yeah, all right, I'll be okay. It's not like my favorite, it's my favorite, corned beef on rye with blood. It's like I'll be okay without blood. So the Gemara says over here, it's an interesting thing. Where it says blood is really not that tempting. And bugs are not that tempting. Torah prohibits to eat bugs, insects, that sort of thing. So the Gemara says, if for not eating blood and not eating bugs, we're going to be rewarded. So all the more so we'll be rewarded for restraining ourselves from theft and immorality, which a person craves. Right? That means there's a natural desire to steal. There's a natural desire to steal. Why not? I could get it at a bargain price. There's a natural desire to steal. Not only that, I'm sure that at some point in your lives, and maybe not for sure, but I would assume at some point in your lives you've been in a supermarket or a department store, and you've thought to yourself, if I really wanted to, I could probably nip one of these things, right? Not that you did, not that I did. You probably thought, no, I really wanted to. I could probably, I see the security guys there. I could probably figure out a way to go into the dressing room and wear an extra couple of pairs of pants and get out of here. We thought about it. Why are we even thinking about that? Because deep down inside, we like to take it. You ever been in the bank and you're just thinking, boy, I wonder how I could take, I wonder how I could get this. It's a natural craving. So the Gemara says, if blood and bugs, which is not something that you find desirable, and you avoid it and you're going to get rewarded for it, so then for sure, something that takes more energy, that you have to overcome the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, when it comes to immorality, stealing, things that we really could gain from and really want to do, imagine the reward you're going to get for it. Now, where is it that we overcome where is it that we even run into blood? First of all, do you know that you pay more money for kosher meat? No. One of the reasons you're paying money for kosher meat is, first of all, it's shechted. You got to pay a special ritual slaughter, and you got to check the birds and make sure there are no. But another thing, part of the process is they salt the what do you got? What part of the cost of is the labor of salting the chicken. I don't know if you've ever seen chicken salt. What they do is they take this. It's got to be a certain type of salt, not just chicken, meat also. It's got to be a certain type of salt that is not too thin because it'll dissolve, and it's not too thick like street salt, because street salt it won't get into all the crevices. It's a certain size salt, and they salt the whole chicken. They salt the chickens, and they salt the and it draws out the blood. And you leave it on there for I think about 20 minutes, a half hour, and you'll see that the salt actually turns red. The salt draws the blood out. And then you wash it off. Any red residue that comes out afterwards is considered halachically not blood. In other words, there will be a red residue, something you put in meat. It looks like, that is considered, in other words, the halacha decides when is it blood and when is it not blood. And at that point, it's no longer considered blood. So when you salt something, the blood, now you're going to be rewarded for that. I remember as a little kid seeing my mother do that. I haven't seen it probably in 40 years. I haven't seen a chicken salted at home. My wife has never salted a chicken at home. I don't even know if she knows how to do it. In the old days, everybody knew. My grandmother, my mother. Right, they grew up. You salted your meat. The Jews salted the meat. Who was salting it? A whole basket with the salt thing, and it's on a drain board, and the whole thing. Okay, there are still people nowadays who do it because they'd rather do the mitzvah themselves. I don't even think my wife knows how to do it. So when you do that, you're fulfilling the mitzvah of not eating blood. You're fulfilling the mitzvah at that point. That is the fulfillment of the mitzvah. And chances are you wouldn't even want the blood in there, but you have to take the blood out. You're fulfilling the mitzvah. Liver can't be salted. Liver can't be salted. The only way to eat liver is by roasting it. Because liver is called halachically, in halacha, the expression used for liver, it is completely blood. Now, obviously, it's not. It's obviously what do you call it? It's obviously meat, But it's called in halacha. It's so saturated with blood that you can't salt it out. You have to roast it, and that's why Jewish chopped liver has almost zero nutrients in it. And people think liver is healthy. Well, Jewish chopped liver is completely. It's almost like eating watermelon. They're almost. What's that? No, almost none. People think there is, but there's almost none because it's been roasted out. The essential nutrients.
Why does it make people that are anemic?
That's if the liver is not. What do you call it? In the Jewish world, if they're doing it, they're probably making a mistake. And the Jewish people that I know, people are anemic, take iron supplements. They take iron supplements. There isn't that much iron left in it. By the time you roast out you're roasting it over fire. You're roasting out almost all of the nutrients in the liver. You're getting. So if you like liver, which I don't, but if you like liver, so chopped liver is as Jewish as you get. That's one of the Jewish foods. But I ain't a liver man. But but there aren't that many nutrients. Now, if you roast out the blood out of the liver, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. They must go. How much liver do they sell there in a day on an Erev Shabbos? They must bring in a truck.
I'll stay with the ribeye.
With the ribeye, yeah. But I bet they must have brought in trucks of liver over there with tubs of liver, so they did chopped liver. So they it does. But you're fulfilling the mitzvah. If you check your fruits, you buy nuts in Israel. You got to open them up to check for bugs and infestations. You're fulfilling a mitzvah. You're fulfilling a mitzvah. You're not. When you bite into an apple, let's say you bite into an apple and there's a worm in the apple, and you're going, oh, that och is the wrong reaction. Your reaction should be, oi, I almost transgressed. We don't because we're grossed out by it. So our first reaction, ugh, a worm, a fleischic apple. We're what do you call it? We're grossed out by it. But you're not supposed. The first reaction is, hey, my goodness, I almost ate a worm over here. Right? And so when you open up a fruit, like in Israel, by the way, we're heading for summer. Fruits, you got to cut them in half, pull out the pit. Peaches especially, to check for infestations. Dates, I was eating dates over Pesach. You got to open them up and check for infestations. But when you do it, even if you don't find one, you're fulfilling a mitzvah, because at least you're looking to check if there's one. And if you don't eat it or you throw it out because it's got. Oh, by the way, my son was working at a hotel in America. He was a mashgiach in a hotel. So he said the caterer, at one point, him and one of the other mashgiachim, they had to check 1,000 eggs. When you open an egg, you check for blood spots in the egg. So him and one of the other mashgichim, these are Shiva guys who go work as mashgichim. So they were checking for blood spots in the eggs. They were opening 1,000 eggs. So he told me that the caterer sometimes has the goyim do it, and he pays them $1 for every blood spot they find. That's a good one. That's a good one, right? That works. Yeah, that works. If you pay him $5, he'd probably find more. Yeah, they probably stab each other and put the blood in there.
How was that, for Pesach?
He was there for Pesach, but
but the egg usually is the whole egg. How would they know about the blood?
No, the soft-boiled eggs. The soft-boiled eggs, they crack them open. They're cooking, and they're checking for and you have to check one egg at a time. That's also in a Jewish woman's kitchen. You never crack an egg right into a cake. You always use a cup, a see-through cup, a transparent cup. You crack the egg into the cup. You put it in, you look around, pour in the egg, crack the next egg, pour it in, look around to see if there are any blood spots. If there's a blood spot, you throw out the egg.
So are you allowed to, are they allowed to now break the eggs officially? Because they have no reason to...
Who?
The non-Jewish workers.
You're giving them a motive
Giving them a motive not to lie, so...
Right. I don't know. I don't know the halakha. It was just interesting. I don't know what when it comes to eggs. I think you're allowed to trust a non-Jew to break eggs. I don't think you have to have a Jew breaking all the eggs. I'm not sure. According to halacha, I don't think the non-Jew. But what happened was maybe yes. I'm not positive. But did you ever hear the Bayless, the famous Bayless blood libel trial? There's a guy named Mendel Bayless. I think it was in 1912, something like that. Mendel Bayless was accused. He was a little Jewish guy. It looked like he stepped out of Jewish Accountants magazine. And this frum little Jewish guy with round glasses. He couldn't hurt a fly. He looked like Woody Allen with a haircut and a yarmulke. That's what he looked like. And he was just this little Jewish guy, and he was like an accountant or something. And there was a Christian child was killed, And the old blood libel accusation came up, which has been, which has been going. The blood libel, the Jews killed the Christian child to use the blood in the Pesach matzahs. Okay, that's been going on for centuries. So I'll tell you something fascinating. The Gemara says that any truth, any lie that doesn't have some iota of truth in it will not persevere. It means when you lie, you got to be a good liar. They say, why were you in school yesterday? Well, I was in astronaut training course. That's not going to make it. You say, well, my grandfather came for a visit. So yeah, okay, he didn't come for a visit. He's about to come for a visit. He did come for a visit, but it was later in the afternoon, after school hours. One way or another, there's something with the grandfather there. Then you could get away with the lie. It's like when you cheated on tests. If you ever got the test in advance, right? Your class got the test in advance. Used to happen once in a while. You get the test in advance. So they go into a room. Not everybody should get 100, because then it looks too much like a lie. You get a 98, you get a 96, you had the 96 last time. Okay, you get the 98, you get the 96. Yeah, you stole the test, you get 100. You go around it. But if everybody gets the exact same grade, if you're cheating off of somebody, you always make sure you get a couple wrong. Because if you got the exact same, how come the the genius and the clown all of a sudden have the exact same answers on the test? Then obviously one of them, something's wrong. A lie that doesn't have an iota of truth in it is not going to make it. So Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman Zatzal, he asks, so why have blood libels, who haven't got an iota of truth in them? First of all things, matzah? You know how careful they are in matzah factories? Jews don't eat blood, number one. Jews are so careful about blood. Number two, matzah, Jews are so careful about matzah. The ridiculousness of them killing, Jews don't kill. Killing a Christian child to use his blood to put into the matzah it is so far removed. There are so many things. It's like one of those in the doctor's office. They used to have those pictures, those books, highlights. What's wrong with this picture? There are so many things wrong. It doesn't even begin. So Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman says, so why is it that this lie, which is a blatant lie, if they told me Jews use blood and they put it in the chont. All right, that could be. Who knows what goes into the chont? It's got that brownish color, and I was missing my wallet one day. I found that in the chont. Everything goes in the chont. Whatever's in the fridge, clear the board, put it in the chont. All right. At least we could get started on an investigation. In the matzahs of all things, take a look at the box of matzahs. It says ingredients. You ever see the matzah box? It says ingredients: flour, water. That's all it says. There's no salt, no sugar, no nothing. What a ridiculous! So Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman says, why is it that this lie made it? He said the lie started when the brothers deceived Yaakov Avinu by dipping Yosef's cloak into blood. They unleashed an energy in the world that the Jewish people will always be victimized by some sort of blood lie. That's what Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman writes. Otherwise, by regular running of the world, this is the most ridiculous lie. So they had this Mendel Bayless, who doesn't look like a killer. He looks like if you saw a caterpillar on the table, he'd head in the other direction. And his wife probably killed the bugs in the house, like by me. And what he called the last thing in the world you'd expect from him is they kill it. And so they had the trial. So they called a character witness. The character witness was the maid who worked in the home, a non-Jewish maid who worked in the Bayless's home. And this non-Jewish maid said, they called her as a character witness. She said, I've been in the kitchen with Mrs. Bayless, and I've seen her throw out entire eggs because of one little blood spot. That's how far removed Jews are from eating blood. So to think they're going to put blood into the, what do you call it? It's such a ridiculous thing. So the Torah says, if you eat blood. Now, I had a friend told me that he was a sheikhet, working in the slaughterhouse. There's a non-Jewish guy there. They shechted a cow. When they shecht the cow, a tremendous amount of blood comes out. They shecht the cow, and the non-Jewish guy is there. He took his cup, filled it up right at the neck, right? Filled it up all the way straight with blood, down the hatch. That was his breakfast. Had a cup of blood, right? So to us it's like I don't know. But again, you guys eat sushi, so I don't know what your problem is. But it's raw. So, I mean, if you got anybody, I eat my food cooked. So you're a big sushi guy, right? Yeah, you got that sushi look. Yeah, I have no respect for sushi eaters. But the what do you call it?
You can understand a nice sea bass.
It's the worst thing I've ever put in my life. It is so bad. I had it once. I had it once and it was bad, and I had tried it just recently a second time. I took one bite and I just said, no, thank you. You know, I did other things with weeds, not wrap it around rice and eat it. That wasn't my what do you call it? So we have such an aversion to blood. Such a here's a guy who knocks down a cup of blood. In England, in the north of England, they have something called black pudding. Now, have you ever heard of black pudding? Black pudding is congealed blood, right? Right, Benjamin? Congealed. It's called some black pudding, mate. Right? It's congealed blood, and they make it apparently into a loaf. I guarantee it tastes good. Otherwise, people wouldn't eat it. People don't eat things that taste bad. And they probably spice it up. I imagine they put it. It comes out like salami. I imagine they put it in what do you call it, garlic and or whatever they stuff in there. But to us, we don't eat blood. Now, why not? Why not? We don't eat blood. Says the Gemara. Look at the next pasuk. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Ki nefesh habasar badamhi. The soul is in the blood. Ki nefesh habasar badami. The soul is contained in the blood. We'll see what the life force, the essential life force is the blood. Anytime a person's ill, what's the first thing they do? Get a blood test. You see everything in the blood. Ki nefesh habasar. An animal does not have a neshama. An animal has a nefesh. A nefesh is what we call a life force. The life force is said to be in the blood. To eat the meat of the animal is one thing. To eat the blood, the life force, is you're going into a different level of consumption of a living being. And therefore, that's what the commentators explain. Therefore, we don't eat the blood. We'll see in a second. I have ordered told you you put the blood on the altar in the base of Mikdash. We put the blood there, to atone for your lives. The blood atones for the soul. Now, if you need a command to tell you not to eat blood, so like anything else in the Torah, we don't have a temptation, right? Bugs, we don't have a temptation. I know there are people who eat chocolate-covered ants or something like that. We don't have a temptation. Now, that's true. But it must be somebody has a temptation. Otherwise, the Torah doesn't say anywhere, don't slam your heads against the wall. That nobody has a temptation. The Torah never says, don't be a White Sox fan. Nobody self-respecting would be a White Sox fan, right? You don't need to tell us that, right? Nobody's going to be a White Sox fan. So the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says, don't eat blood, which means that apparently there was some temptation. Why was there a temptation to eat blood? We'll see how this continues with what we said earlier. Do you know why people consume blood? Did you read Harry Potter? Did any of you read Harry Potter? Probably required. It should be required reading in English classes. You could toss out Dostoevsky. Bring in Potter. You know, much more sophisticated, right? So why is it that people remember the unicorn? You know, you got to consume unicorn blood, then you could contact the occult and all sorts of things. That idea comes from the Torah. People who went out to the wilderness, to contact the forces, the shadim, and all the. One of the ways you brought yourself to that state was by consuming blood. Okay, now let's understand. It's a very interesting idea here.
That's the way to bring Voldemort back.
The way to bring Voldemort back is something, right? Where it always comes around. You'll see even in the secular, right? All the ideas in the Wizard of Oz. How does she put it? She melts her with water. You know that the Gemara says that water is one of the counterforces to witchcraft?
The what?
Water is one of the counterforces to witchcraft. Where do you think they got that? Some Jewish writer in the Wizard of Oz. Came up with the idea, whoever it was.
Mom wasn't Jewish.
No, but he probably had a Jewish friend who dropped out of yeshiva and he remembered it. One way or another. Who wrote Wizard of Oz?
Frank Baum.
Who?
Frank Baum.
Frank Baum. Sounds Jewish. But whatever it was, there's a lot of this stuff, the Ten Commandments, all this stuff, there's something rooted in Judaism. Why do Christians baptize? You baptize somebody by sprinkling water on him. Where do we go? In Judaism, so you dunk somebody. It's not that far. I don't say that's where the idea necessarily came from, but the idea is somehow they always seem to come back to the same roots, one way or another. So here the Torah says, why would a person eat blood?
It relates to black magic.
Right.
It must be one of the processes.
Correct.
Some of the ritual.
The Ramban says that those lunatics, that's the word he uses, he says mishugoyim, the lunatics who try to make contact with the occult one of the ways they condition themselves to get to that state is by consuming blood. Now, this brings us to a bigger subject. Again, I could only tell you I'll tell you the description. I'm only parroting the commentaries. What you do with it is your own. You could think about it just like I could think about it. What they say is like this. There's a force and a counterforce in the world. There are always, in order to maintain free choice, our free choice has to have some sort of balance. If it's not balanced, there's no challenge. If it's too obvious, there's no challenge. So, in order for a person to become a prophet, what did he have to do? To become a Jewish prophet, what did he have to do? You have to live a life of extreme holiness, work on yourself, perfect your character, grow in your holiness until you eventually get to the point where you can actually experience prophecy. The forces of evil also are built on work. It has to be that way. And what kind of work is that? This is work in the area of kedusha, of holiness. To do the other is work in the area of impurity. So if you have Bilam was the prophet of the nations, right? You've heard of Bilam. So the Gemara says that Bilam actually committed bestiality with his animal, with his donkey. He committed bestiality. The bestiality isn't purely a result of he's a pervert. There's no coincidence that the greatest prophet commits bestiality. Because what he's doing is he's perfecting himself, so to speak, in the world of the impure. If you want to get to impurity, to the ultimate sources of impurity, you have to be impure yourself. So the way to perfect, if you perfect yourself through impurity, you work on yourself, you condition yourself, and one of those factors is consuming blood. That's also a way to get into this world of impurity. It's equal and opposite. That's why when the men of the Great Assembly neutralized the Yetzer Hara, you know, the Gemara says that there was such a strong drive to worship idols. At a certain point, the men of the Great Assembly, they asked for permission from God to neutralize the evil inclination because there were too many Jewish casualties. So they neutralized him. Whatever the Gemara reports, how they neutralized him. But at the same period, prophecy ended. Because if you neutralize the drive for inappropriate spirituality, and all you're left with the drive for proper spirituality, then there's a lack of balance in your free choice. So we're taking out the top two players on both teams. Take out the top player on the Blackhawks, take out the top player on the Raptors. Now we're back. Now we're going on the Predators. Now we're going to the next level. Otherwise, you take out one top player from one team, then you lose the balance. Take off the top player. That's what happens with idol worship. That's what blood is. Blood is a way of trying to perfect ourselves in the world of the impure. That's the idea. Okay? Now watch this. So the Torah says, don't eat blood. Don't eat bugs. By the way, I had a friend who I told him I had been in Hong Kong. So this guy said I was on my way to Australia, so I had a layover in Hong Kong. So I had a friend who asked me, as a man, an elderly rabbi who used to fundraise in the Far East, and he used to go traveling there and he would do fundraise. So he said to me, "Did you travel around in Hong Kong?" I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not into traveling around sightseeing. I'd stay in the airport, try. So he said, "You missed it." He says, "You got to go to Hong Kong. They have an outdoor market. Like you go here. Do you ever seen the outdoor market where you buy sunflower seeds and all that? In Hong Kong, they have an outdoor market where they sell all sorts of bugs and rodents. And you go in there, you say to the guy, I'll take 150 grams of those red crawlers over there. And it's in a bag, gives it to you, wraps it up. Then I'll take some of those worms over there. And they got like an outdoor market, you pick it. So obviously, they spice their food with it or they eat it. They enjoy it. To us, it's repulsive.
It's like Chinese,
Right. So to us, what do you call it? You should know when they brought in Israel, when the Thai, they brought in a lot of Thai workers into Israel, and the cat population of Yerushalayim decreased. That was known. And in China, they do eat dog. They eat snake.
I was denying dog. I was denying
Cat. Okay. I know that the cat population in Yerushalayim decreased rapidly. And again, I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, was one thing better than another? What's wrong with eating dog? I never tasted snake. Yeah, oh, well, I don't think they take, it's not like one day, they take, hey, come here, Rover, it's supper time, it's the din, and Rover's like looking around and said, no, you, it's not like we're putting it in the bowl. Whatever it is, I don't ever saw anything. In Saudi Arabia, cows' eyes are considered a delicacy. Cows' eyes are a delicacy. It's a delicacy. In China, they eat monkey brains. And they have a way of eating it. They take the monkey, they lap off the top, and you just scoop it out right out of the thing like an egg holder. Okay, listen, I don't know. And maybe if they're eating it, it probably tastes good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be eating it. They're not torturing themselves. So to us, a lot of these things are repulsive. Now, pay attention carefully. Watch how the Torah connects. Take a look at page 648. V'ish ish mi b'nei Yisrael ubin hager hagor besocham. Top of page 648. Asher yotzud seid chaya o'of. Any Jew who hunts an undomesticated animal, like a deer, venison, or a fowl, asher yeyachel, v'shafach es damo, you spill the blood. In other words, when you slaughter the animal, v'chisahu be'ofar, you cover over the blood. There's a mitzvah of kisui hadam. When you shecht an animal, a chicken, any fowl, any non-domesticated animal, you slaughter it, and there's a mitzvah of covering the blood. You make a bracha on kisui adam, you cover the blood. Halacha says, don't use your foot because it's inappropriate to do a mitzvah by kicking it over. Take your hands and sprinkle the blood on it. Yeah, but not your foot. Anything that you would use in order to do it. Not your foot in a degrading way. In a respectful way. So you'll notice over here, the Torah says, well, if you shecht a undomesticated animal, deer, venison, what other kosher non-domesticated animals are there? Deer, venison. I think a giraffe is kosher. We just don't know how to shecht it. What else is kosher? I don't even know what other non-domesticated animals are kosher.
Quail.
Probably do. What's that?
Quail.
Quail's fowl. I'm talking about undomesticated animals and fowl. Bison. Oh, could be bison. Yeah, right. One of those things. So that you have to cover the blood. But if you shecht a cow or a goat or a sheep, you don't have to cover the blood. It says a chaya. A chaya means an undomesticated animal as opposed to a behema, which is a domesticated animal in general. And then it says oaf. Why? Why is it that a cow, a goat, or a sheep, you don't have to cover the blood? And an undomesticated animal like a deer or venison or a bird, you do have to cover the blood. Why is that? If you think about what we said you'll see the logic here is impeccable. Commentaries explain like this. Where do you generally, where do you find cows, goats, and sheep? On your farm, in your backyard, in your corral. Where do you find deer or fowl? Out in the wilderness. You're out in the wilderness. Oh, you're out in the wilderness. And you got a deer out there. And you shech the deer. Uh-oh. Now there's a temptation. I'm all alone out here, out in the wilderness, just me, the deer, and the blood. Oh, yeah. Voldemort, here I come. Right? The Torah says, you know what? And birds also. Most birds, not chickens, but chickens are fowl, so they're included in the command. But all other birds, all their fowl, you're going to catch out in the wilderness. So the Torah says, you know what? Don't get caught up in the temptation. Cover the blood. Cover the blood. Don't use the blood. Your cow, no one's going in the barn to contact Voldemort. Right? Voldemort doesn't come to barns, right? No one's going to the barn. You're shechting a goat in your barn. So again, are there exceptions? It could be a mountain goat is considered a chaya, a regular goat. I'm saying there are different streams of goats. I'm sure. I don't know everything in the animal. What's that?
The undomesticated ones. Like obviously you can't use a gun, you can't use a bear trap.
You can trap them, you can catch them in a hole, however you can catch a deer. Get a rope or something that ropes them, get them got antlers or something. That way you're allowed to, I don't know, that's not a problem. They can trap them. Again, you can't, if he's trapped, you're asking a good question, Scott, because if you trap an animal in a way that the animal is injured, and it causes what's called a life-threatening injury, so the animal's already rendered non-kosher. So you gotta, I'm sure the deer trappers knew how to do it in such a way. Deer is supposed to, I've never had venison or deer, but it's supposed to be very delicious. It's supposed to be my uncle is a Satmar Chassid who lives in Monroe. You know where Monroe is, they said they have the woods over there. And this guy was he was with he was an undercover cop with the New York police. Full-fledged Satmar. It's go with the whole get-up. This guy isn't afraid of anything. So they caught a deer once. They caught a deer out in the woods, and he brought it in. He shechted. He's a sheikhet also. And I asked him, how was it? He said it was like butter. He said it was delicious. They caught him and his son. They wrestled the deer. That's how you asked how they caught the deer. That's him and his son. They came slowly, so then they jumped him and they just wrestled him down. And they brought him and they shechted him and they had him and he said it was absolutely delicious. So I've never had. But the Torah is telling you over here specifically. See, that's why again. Sometimes the logic when you get into the rationale, as opposed to what the halacha is, the raw halacha, the rationale is the classic commentaries offering what could the Torah have had behind this. The Torah obviously was thinking of something. They're offering, that's why sometimes if it's not airtight, it doesn't have to be airtight like halacha. The halacha is, listen, I don't know exactly what to do and you can't veer off. When they're offering you an idea behind it, so the idea is, listen, this is basically seems to be, there might be a problem. What about chicken? And what about, but in general, they're giving you a pattern seems to emerge. The pattern here is, and it follows right after don't eat the blood. Why would you want to eat the blood? To contact the occult. Okay, now cover the blood. Why cover it? So if you're going to cover the blood, why not cow's blood? Well, the answer is because you're not about to use the cow's blood for anything inappropriate. You're not going to use the cow. Say may as well. You may as well cover. But for the birds and for the venison, they have to cover. Okay.
Does that include domesticated birds?
Yeah, all birds have to be, anything in the fowl, by chickens, anything you have to.